unless you have a really good system in place, this can get messy very quickly. You need to talk to an attorney. Please don't go on ChatGPT and do this. It's going to miss something, and then you're going to be in the mess, and then it's going to go, oh yeah, you make a great point there. You should probably have that in your agreement. And so don't do that. Really seriously talk to a legal expert.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to ABA Business Leaders Podcast, brought to you by 3 Pi Squared. I'm April.
I'm Steven.
Welcome back to our Basics 2025 series. This is where we go back to the foundations of running an ABA business. Whether you're dreaming about starting a company, already running one, or preparing for what's next, we will meet you where you are. And here's the truth. The earlier you start working on these foundations, the better your chances of success, the fewer problems you'll face, and the smoother your growth will be. Just like in clinical practice, early intervention makes all the difference. So each episode, we've had a few already. This is our third official Back to Basics episode. We'll focus on one core business topic and talk about what it means if you're starting, scaling, transitioning, and have reflection questions throughout. So no matter where you are in your journey, we'll walk away with some clarity and some next steps. And today's topic for Back to Basics is operations agreement. Don't turn it off. Stay with us. Operation agreements are a very important part of your business. And it might sound like one of those legal things that you can put off, but it's actually one of the most important basics that you can put in place early. So if anyone else has a hand in your business, even if they're not like a partner in writing.
So yeah, I mean, so this is going to be two different groups. So it's going to be like a spouse. Mm-hmm. Even if they're not part owner,
like a helper spouse, right? Like or a friend who's just helping out. Even
not a friend. No, like this has to be like someone that's married to you, right? So that if there is a divorce, this is going to be a problem.
Okay.
And then it's going to be an actual like partner.
Business partner.
Like maybe own a certain number of shares of your S Corp, right?
Gotcha.
So that these are the two categories that we're going to be discussing today. And then just one thing before, what? Don't look at me like that.
My introduction. Okay. I still had like more to say before we hopped in to start talking about the details.
Sorry. I'm just so excited to talk about operating agreements.
Gotcha. So if anyone else has a hand in your business, whether it's your spouse, or just the fact that you're married and you're a business owner, or a business partner, you need an agreement that spells out how things will work before challenges or disagreements come up, like before. And so we'll go through our starter, new businesses, and ongoing businesses and those who are transitioning out. But we're going to talk about like key components that are necessary in the operating agreement. And so we're going to introduce all these components, and Steven will talk about his, like the why behind this. First, as we're talking about like starting your business, and then we'll just touch on ongoing business and closing business, what these pieces may look like.
Sounds good.
All right. Take it away.
Okay. I just want to like qualify this whole podcast with, we are not attorneys.
Yes.
And so while we have guided BCBAs through the startup process, and even in our business leaders masterclass, we do have a template operation agreement. These things get very complex, very, very quickly, especially, I often hear, well, I'm going to hire a clinical director and they're going to take over my new clinic, and I want to give them a certain, portion of the ownership of this, and now this is where things get very complex. You have multiple owners with different portions of the company. It's going to get, unless you have a really good system in place, this can get messy very quickly. An attorney, you need to talk to an attorney. Please don't go on ChatGPT and do this. It's going to miss something. It's going to miss something, and then you're going to be in the mess, and then it's going to go, oh yeah, you make a great point there. You should probably have that in your agreement. And so don't do that. Really seriously talk to a legal expert on this piece. So important. LegalShield.com. Again, we don't get anything from that, but it is a very cost effective way to get legal representation in your state, for a very affordable price. So please have somebody review it, and review it often.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Okay. Well, so there are a lot of parts that need to be involved, and these may not even be all inclusive. It's not necessarily all inclusive list, because this is a 45-minute-ish to an hour podcast where we're just talking about the highlights, and we're just getting this conversation going and helping you to be aware of what is necessary or what you need or where you need to get started. Reach out to us for more on our business masterclass. Reach out to an attorney, like Stephen already said. So this is just a start. Okay. So what do you need? What are the key components? So I'm just going to go over first. I'm just going to tell you all the key components. So some of you who like to see the big picture first, you're welcome. Those of you who don't like to see the big picture first because it feels overwhelming, I'm sorry, just hang in there. We'll break it up and do each piece as we go. But so ownership and roles, right? Who's owning this? What part percentage? What are their roles? Decision making and control. Who gets to make decisions for what? How does that work? Who's in control of money? Who's in control of clinical? All those pieces, however you want to break it up. Money matters. That I believe speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Hiring and firing. Roles and responsibilities. It's kind of a build on to the ownership and roles piece, but even more to looking at the day to day. Who does what? And we'll talk more about that when we get there. Conflict resolution, exit and transition, and dissolution.
Yes. And there may be one other piece that you want to add in there, especially if there are multiple BCBAs. So who gets to make the final clinical decision, right? So let's say there's a difficult case, or maybe you want to start working with a different, adding a specialty, or there are many things that could possibly happen. But if it's 50-50 and you're both BCBAs, somebody has to make a decision. So having that in there as well.
And I think we'll talk about that during that decision-making piece. So if you are just starting out, this might feel like a lot, but it is it's necessary. It's like that preventative work it is going to save you heartache and hard work later down the road. You're like, oh, but I love my partner, right? They're great. This is the best thing ever. We've been friends since we were 15.
Yes.
I don't care.
Yeah,
you still need one of these in place.
Yes.
Yeah.
And same with
because if you really enjoy this person.
Yeah. And same with your spouse, right?
Your spouse.
So again, even if they are not part owner, even if they're not really making any day-to-day decisions, this can turn into a nightmare. So spelling out, because a lot of, I'm generalizing here, but typically what I see, and it's the same thing that April and I were doing, right? April's the clinical director, I'm the ops person, so but I'm spending the money, right? I've seen it a couple of times where I get a call from a BCBA saying, hey, I was everything was going great, and then I realized my husband opened up credit cards in the company's name without my permission. I had no idea. They're maxed out. Our checking account is basically there's nothing in it, so you really need to make sure that you have this drawn out, right? And then, like I said, in divorce, this can be really messy because the other person can say, hey, look, I was a part of this, even though I don't technically own anything. It can get really messy. So it's just really important that even if they're not involved, writing out something, some kind of an agreement saying, hey, that you're completely uninvolved in this. If something happens, this is my company, right? Like whatever it is, but having something in place, because if something terrible happens, whether it's a partner, like an actual partner, your friend or a colleague, or it's your spouse, and you have to come up with 40% of the value of the company because they're out, this is going to be very difficult.
Right. So it's kind of like a prenup for your business. Yeah. So, okay, reflection question before we dive into it. Mm-hmm. So think about so number one, no brainer. If you are married, even if your spouse is not part of this, you need to put that in writing. Okay, no brainer. Everyone has to do that. Next thing, so then you start to think about who in my life is currently involved in this dream. Do we have a written agreement about roles? Or do you have silent partners? Do you have like your great aunt Linda is giving you some money to help you start out, right? Who is involved in this? Is it just you? Do you have a BCBA friend and you're kind of like doing this together, but she agrees that it's yours? Well, you got to get this in writing, right? Like there's all of that part. So that just takes us to the ownership and roles, right? So, there's like the percentage of ownership, right? Does that vary? Now you may not know this. Because this might be an attorney question, but like, does this depend on like whether you're S Corp or like all of those different variations?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're going to need an accountant or like a business accountant or an attorney to help you with this. But from my limited understanding, like you could have a C Corp, right, and have certain percentage ownership. You could also have like an S Corp where each person gets a certain percentage of the shares of the company. And then based on, they will get dividends at the end of the year based on the profit of the company, right? So like these are things that you need to have drawn out very clearly by someone that understands how to write these out. Yeah. So it can vary. And like I said, when you get into, I've got a silent partner and they own 5% of the company because they gave me this investment. Like, now I brought on this PCBA that's amazing and he or she does a very unique, programming or has a certain special skill that's going to just bring tremendous value to my practice, and we're going to give them 10% ownership, right? Like these things, it gets super complex. And so you have to plan this thing out. And like you said, you need this at the start, especially if you're going into this with a spouse or you're going into this with a partner. Because you guys are doing well right now, I assume, right? Like I assume that everything is happy and wonderful. It better be, because I'm building a business with this person. And so like, this is going to be the best. This is probably going to be the best, especially for the first 3 years. It's going to get stressful. It's going to get difficult. There's going to be some yelling and screaming and disagreement.
Well, okay, Mr. Negative.
There is. It is. I can guarantee it. It may not be often, but you'll want this agreement in place before that stuff starts.
You can even think of it as insurance. You never have to need the agreement, but it's there in case.
Yes. And so, yeah, there are too many people that have come to me talking about, man, I wish I would have had this in place.
Well, we know humans are complicated, and this is a job where we're working with humans and we're complicated. So yes, you need to have, and the communication is so important, and the communication is built within this agreement of who does what, who's responsible for what. Well, I thought you were, gonna be the one paying the rent bill. Why it hasn't been paying 6 months? Oh, well, I thought you were paying the rent bill. I mean, even just like those little things can blow up, right?
And I will say, like, one of these things that is really important is like if the roles do change.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. Though we'll keep it updated when we talk about the next segment.
Great, let's do it.
All right. So, decision making and control. So, who has the authority over major decisions? Like, think finances, hiring, firing, contracts, expansions. Like Stephen mentioned earlier, clinical decisions. Voting right. Their voting rights. Is there like majority, unanimous, weighted by ownership? Are you gonna have like a board? I don't know. Like, do people do boards sometimes?
Yeah.
And then like, okay, so let's say there's two of you that are the decision makers, owners. Is there a tiebreaker?
Yes.
So let's chat about that.
Yeah, I mean, again, this gets really messy, especially if there's three or more, right? This can turn into like, I'm just thinking more about like our son right now. and the dynamics he's having with his friends, like
the preteen years.
So like this can get messy really quickly. Somebody can get pushed out. Somebody can, So just having these nailed down and asking all the questions that you can possibly think of, right, is just so important. And like, if there are multiple partners and the two of them are getting together and one is on the outs, like how do you handle that, right? What if you're trying to kick somebody out but they don't want to sell? I mean, there's just so many situations when like I see this question on Facebook all the time, like, hey, I'm thinking about partnering with my colleague, the BCBA, and there are a lot of people that are just like, do not do that, right? Like, don't think about it. It's an awful idea. And you'll hear all the horror stories. I have heard a lot of horror stories. And then I hear, this is the greatest thing I've ever done. I wanted to do it with my friend and it was awesome. And so like, it's just, you have to know that this is a possibility. So having all of this written out, right? Like you said, it's like once you gain a certain percentage of the company, then you get to make a decision, right? Like who gets to decide who uses the money, who gets to decide if we're going to bring on any more funders, who gets to decide if we're going to terminate a contract, right, with a funder. It's just,
Well, even, we worked with a company to help come up with an internal policy of where the owners who are non-clinical owners and the clinical staff, like we help them because the non-clinical owners were like very invested in making sure that the clinical staff who were not owners were very involved in this, right? And they understood the importance of all of the BACB ethics and all of those pieces. And they needed to be able to keep their doors open and pay their staff. Sure. And so coming up with those agreements of like decision trees and, here's the clinical side of why we make this decision. Here's the business side of where we make this decision. Let's come together and decide, okay, what are those benchmarks going to be? What are those, what do you call it? Like when it's like no brain, like deal breaker kind of things. Like if this thing happens and it automatically goes to this. And so, even looking at like caseload or, things like that are very clinical in nature, yet they do like their business important to the business too. Yeah.
So like for all of you, like, partners out there, so I'm talking about spouse, right? The question I would ask you is my business protected if I get a divorce? Like, I think it's 50% of marriages end in divorce. So
is it really?
Yeah, it's something crazy like that.
Look at us.
Yeah, there you go. Right. So you have to ask yourself that question and talk to an attorney that you can answer that question with confidence, right? So it's just so, like I said, we've seen it, we've been through it. It is a horrible, awful experience because you're dealing with the divorce, you're dealing with maybe parental rights, and then on top of this, now your company may be like like you're locked out of your bank account, or you can't get access to credit because this person won't allow, like, so like these are things that you just
too, I guess, like the technology end, like if someone has like the passwords and the access to the emails and like the Teams, the Microsoft hold thing, right?
Yeah, and I mean, and normally, right, this your divorce is not somewhere everybody's happy. Oh, yay, we're getting a divorce, right? Like that's not typically what happens.
Yeah, it's typically messy.
Yes. So like, you're probably not going to be on your best behavior, and so this is So having this in place is so important. Yeah.
All right, moving on to money. Oh, there's so much about the money part because, like, in conflict, in divorce, in whether the company isn't working, like the money theme like runs throughout the whole thing, and you have to be able to make the money to keep the company running. Like the money theme is like what is running through all of it. So some of the things I brainstormed were like, who controls the bank accounts? Who can spend the money in the bank accounts? Do you have an agreement? Like you can spend X amount of money on your own, but if it's over a certain amount, do we have to come make a decision? Looking at categories such as utilities, rent bills, those types of bills. And then like looking at, assessment kits or, learning supplies, toys, office supplies, coffee, snacks, all of that. How much are you going to spend in your sensory room or your play areas, or are you going to, there's a lot of decisions to be made throughout different categories. How the profits are distributed and how are the losses handled, capital contributions, what each partner is putting in, procedures for taking on debt or outside funding. And those are just a few.
Yes, but like who can get assigned for a loan, right? Do both have to sign for it, or do multiple have to sign for it, or is it a majority has to sign? Like these things, you just you have to have down, right? The last thing you want is like, oh wow, I have a $60,000 credit that is maxed out, and I had no idea we even had it. Like again, these things happen. This is not a uncommon thing in business. So you just want to make sure you're protected. I would also highly recommend, especially if it's two people, but like even with larger partnerships, having some kind of an outside mentor on the financial side of things, it would be very helpful just to talk through like, oh, hey, I want to buy this extravagant thing. And I'm like, no, I don't think we can afford it. Right. And then having like a financial planner that can say, yeah, you know what, really, you should not buy this right now. Right. You have payroll taxes coming up this month or whatever it may be. Right. So having someone, Margin Keepers, shout out to Margin Keepers. They are a sponsor of this podcast, but they're amazing. Like they can help with this. And so on our website, you can sign up for a free consult and just say, hey, what should I do here? They'll be able to help you. So, but I would advise that, right? Cause they can look at, okay, what's coming in for revenue, what's going out for expenses, what can you, budget for these certain things. And it would be good, even if you're not a partner, to go through that experience, but especially when you're in a partnership, right? Like some people, like maybe they just love to spend, right? And then other people are more frugal, and you know what I mean? So
yeah. All right. So hiring and firing. A big part of the business, right? So who has the authority to hire or terminate staff, right? It could very well be where one person's like, I really like this person. The other person's like, oh, they're not doing their job. And then the other person's like, well, they're having a hard time in life right now. Let's cut them a break. And the other person's like, but they're not doing their job, right? Or if you're partners and you're not related, right? And maybe, who knows, right? Like I said, humans are complicated. Yes. So who can hire? No, we're not hiring her. Oh, she's my cousin. She needs a job. I don't care.
Yes.
She doesn't match what we're looking for. Yes. Like, no. Or maybe we agree we're not hiring family or close friends, or, there's so much that goes into that could really cause conflict. And, how are the leadership positions are filled, right? Who oversees supervision and quality standards? And so we're going to actually be doing another one of these back to basics here soon about how to determine what quality is. So we're not going to spend too much time here, but you do need to agree, especially if you're in business with someone. You guys need to sit down together, and as well as your mission statement, your values, what are your pillars? Oh, I just threw my pen. And talk together, brainstorm together, or maybe brainstorm separately and then come together. What's quality look like to you, right? Yes. Quality services look like to you. So that's that. And then who oversees that? Who's in charge of the KPI piece of that book?
Now, some other things just to think about that you may have not thought about yet, but even vendors, right? Like, how do we pick a biller? How do we pick a practice management software?
Yeah, so it's not like directly hiring and firing, but it's those related.
Yes, those things that you're going to bring on that are going to support the business. Like how are we going to make a decision on an accountant or a financial planner or a mentor? What if one of us doesn't like the mentor? Like these things, you just want to try and think about. Like, again, this goes back to failure mode analysis, right? Like, so. Like, what are the most awful, terrible things that can happen? And then let's try to put in some kind of a plan in place to mitigate that risk, if at all possible, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so, too, like looking at the, who's in leadership, right? Who gets raises, so having your policies and your procedures, we have a nifty little growth path, platform, through ABA Business Leaders, if you're interested. But it's just really making sure that you have these policies and procedures, and that everyone in the same position level are being treated equally, and that you guys agree on what that looks like, and you have it in writing.
Yep.
All right. So, kind of moving through that, roles and responsibilities. So, looking at you guys as the owners, co-owners, partners, what are your roles and responsibilities? Looking at the big picture stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But then also looking at day-to-day management. And sometimes it can be really helpful to think of it in terms of, okay, I'm going to be making a chart for our employees, so they know who to go to when. Mm-hmm. Right? If I have a question about, for even within 3Pi Square, within ABA Business Leaders, our team here, if I have a question about podcasts, I'm going to go to April. If I have questions about the ABA business platform and or insurance or all of the things, you go to Steven, right? And so, but breaking it down more specifically, right? And you could have start with some broad categories, but then really breaking it down specifically of who's doing what day to day. And this, as we talk about in the next segment, these things are going to change and evolve and grow as you guys do.
Can I pause you for one second? Okay, so there was one thing I just it's just coming to my mind that I didn't. So we talked about the entity type, C Corp, S Corp. There may be one that you all are thinking about that it seems obvious. Well, I'm going to have a partnership, obviously. So when you are building out this entity and you're going to have partners, talk to a business account or a business attorney, because again, depending on how complex you want these partnerships, partnership may not be for you. When I was talking to an accountant, the accountant that we were working with did not like partnerships, even if it was going to be partners. He much preferred to have an S Corp. He found it easier. Now, again, this is one person's opinion. I don't know. It sounded good to me. But so this, again, is just something that you may want to consider. Obviously, I'm going to have a partnership. Again, you want to set this up smartly. So just talk to an attorney.
Oh, that's really good advice.
Okay.
Just back to roles and responsibilities. There's not too much more to say. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory as far as what you're doing, what's your day to day, what's your big picture. But who's doing the clinical oversight versus the business management. We've already mentioned that, but I think it's especially important in ABA companies where one partner may be clinical and the other person may be business, because sometimes like the clinical person is going to do the clinical, but as you're listing out all of these pieces, right? As you're breaking it down into smaller components, there are going to be parts that are like, well, I don't know, this could actually be part of business, or we need both for this. Like I go back to client caseload for a BCBA, right? How many hours, right? How many billable hours, and like how are we going to determine that? That is very much clinical and business, right? Yeah. So how are we going to come together? What parts do one hold and what parts do the other hold? Or if you're both clinical, right? Who's going to take on the business part, and maybe you might not see eye to eye on some of the clinical things. So what's the
other thing, we talked about it in the market analysis, but like, who is your client, right? So like having, like, you know, if one is like, oh, well, let's just take everybody, and then the other is like, no, we have to stay in our lane. You know, this is our scope of practice, you know, until we get this certain training, or we talk to this certain mentor, or we bring on this certain BCBA, we can't go out of that scope. You really want to know, okay, what is the age range? What comorbidities are we able to accept, right? Like, what kind of care do these children or families need? You know, I think we talked about it again the last time, but are these, you know, at risk, right? So maybe they're at risk for leaving the home and they need like more 24/7 support. Are we going to handle these cases, or are we not? So just having that nailed down, like, again, who is our customer is really important, because again, you may make some assumptions and you're both assuming way different things. And so nailing this down, again, going through market analysis, okay, yeah, we figured out who our clients are, is going to kind of narrow the focus of this operations agreement, right? Because you know who you're focusing on. So this can be very helpful. You'll know more about the roles that you're going to have, because you don't need these other roles. So it's part of it. Yeah. Okay.
All right, moving on to conflict resolution. Who likes to talk about conflict? Not me. But it's a necessary part in business. It's a necessary part in life. How are you going to handle disputes between partners? Are you, like, even like think big, think bad for a minute? Are you going to like have a mediation process, arbitration, court? Like, ideally you want to have some things in place so it doesn't get to that point.
Yeah. I mean, arbitration can be very expensive from what I understand. So again, if we're dealing with these, I assume we're probably not bringing in a whole lot of income if both of our clinicians are fighting right now, right? We're not doing, so like, we want to try and do this without it getting to that point. So yeah, like having a third party that you both trust, that you feel will give you the advice, I would highly recommend having this person in place, right?
So I didn't mention this in any of my brainstorm, because I was like, I'm not going to go there today, but I'm going there. Here I come. Mental health is important, right? And I think that whether you're married or you're not married, or you're in a relationship, non-business relationship and in business together, or you're just business partners together, like, I say, get a good therapist, right? A couples therapist, a relationship therapist, a partner. I don't know what you want to call it. Well, I don't know. I'm sure there's someone out there for you. Even if you meet on a quarterly basis, or, do some activity together, to kind of set up and have them help you set up your conflict resolution plan, right? And then even they potentially could be the mediator, possibly in some of the situation, or someone like that, right? I don't know, but it's super important to be able to communicate and to get all of the support that you possibly need to be able to communicate, right?
Yeah. I mean, the more support you have is probably, like, I don't hear often, oh, well, that was too much support. I didn't. So like, especially in these things where they're really complex and you don't have all the information. I don't have all the information. We rely on experts even for our company. We have mentors. We have a really great accountant. We have a HIPAA guy, right? Like, so these things are like, I don't know, and I can't, and I don't want to either. So it's really important that you bring in these outside experts that can be a mediator of some sort, right? To say, actually, this doesn't work. And maybe a therapist is a good idea, but maybe you need a financial expert too.
Yeah.
Your therapist, oh, well, you should do it this way. And then your financial, yeah, okay. Well, if you were making like $50,000 more a year, then yeah, you could. But, you can't. So like it's just going to depend on the situation, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So the last thing is exit and transition, and then also dissolution. But we're definitely going to talk more in detail about this when we get to that third stage. Mm-hmm. But what I do want to say here is that you need an exit strategy and transition strategy, and I guess a dissolution plan. Is that such a thing?
Yeah, I mean,
before you, like during this beginning piece.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, like things you may have, I see it even like with just singly owned, but that's probably a dumb way to say it, but like a BCB owned company with no partners. They're like, yeah, I want to do this, right? They're all gung ho, everything's great. So they start taking our business masterclass, and I've had it happen several times, and they're like, yeah, peace out. Like, I ain't doing this. So like and so they're like, yeah, I got a raise with my current company. I'm done. Like, this is just too much. Great. Right. So it can happen very quickly where one partner is like, wow, I thought this was going to be all puppy dogs and rainbows, and this is awful and horrible. I've just realized I don't want to be a business owner. So like these things happen. So having that again. And okay, now you have a company that's worth, I don't know, $500,000, $1 million. I don't know what it's worth at this point when this happens, right? And so, okay, they're out. Well, okay, that's great. And then they're like, where's my money? So how do you do that, right? Yeah. And so again, having these things in place ahead of time, super important.
All right. So we're going to head into segment 2 for the growers, the existing businesses. Doesn't matter how long you've been in business. Mm-hmm. So if you're already running a company, what does that mean for your operating agreement? It might need a tune-up. You might need an internal little check and an audit. So do you even have one? Maybe you're like 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, whatever, into it. And you're like,
we didn't have an operating agreement.
No, we didn't. And you're like, oh, we don't have one. We never did that. Wow, that's a great idea. But is it too late for us? No, it's not. It just is going to be, it could be a little trickier, but it also can be very eye-opening as you go through all of these steps, right? And, if you do have one, does it match still? Do things need to be, roles often evolve as companies grow. And so really taking a minute to look at it, even if each person takes the time to do their own self-audit of their roles and responsibilities and compare it back to where you started. Or if you don't have one already, okay, what am I already doing? Right.
Yeah.
It would be very interesting to know, like, so if you've been in business 5 years with a partner, you never did an operations agreement. And so then now you sit down and you're like, okay, let's each take our own time. We'll meet back at the end of the month with our own list of our roles and responsibilities within the company. Mm-hmm. And then let's meet back. And it would be kind of interesting to be a fly on the wall to that conversation and say, was anyone surprised? Or was it like, yeah, no, I know that's what you're doing. I know that's what I'm doing. Okay, great. Let's get it on paper.
Right. I mean, I see often, like, you'll have 2 clinicians starting to practice, and then one of them does, like you had mentioned earlier, go into more of the ops. Yeah. Right. And they use the ABA. So they use it more in an OBM manner for staff. Right. So like, this is a very natural place, right? Especially if you're like, dude, I loved working with kids and supervising people, but I want to hone my skills in a different way. Yeah.
So revisit revisit decisions about finances, authority, responsibility. If you've added new partners, investors, or managers, update the agreement. I mean, the idea would be that you have, whether you had one or not, you get one now. And then you put a policy in place that maybe every, I don't know, you decide for yourself. You know how quickly things are changing within your company. Do you need to revisit this quarterly? Do you need to revisit it every 6 months? Do you need to revisit it every year?
Right.
But put something in your calendar. Go ahead and plan a meeting, set time aside, block time for it to where you check in with this to see what's needed to update it. A clear agreement helps reduce resentment and power struggles as well. We kind of talked about that earlier. But if you find yourself, right? So it's one of those like fires. We've talked before about putting out fires, right? And in the sense of looking at staff, right? Your employees. And if you're constantly putting out fires, you need to take a step back and evaluate your policies and procedures and your communication and all of that with your staff. I would say the same in the partnership, right? If you find that you're just constantly putting out fires and things are just drama's happening all the time, take a step back and look at your operations agreement and revisit that and say, okay, is it time to tweak things? Do we need to remind ourselves of things? Do we need to put some post-it notes up? Do we, what do we need to do? Because a lot of times that it does come from like miscommunication and misunderstandings, right?
Yeah.
So reflection prompt for this stage of the game. Does my current agreement reflect how we actually operate today? Of course, do I have an agreement? And then where have I noticed gray areas of tension that need clarity in writing? Right. So any other words of wisdom for those growers?
I mean, I just think you've already kind of hit on it, but like, just like your employees, you really want to have especially again for your partners, you want to have that open door policy where you all can talk about things before resentment starts creeping in, right? Like the last thing you want is, again, you have multiple partners and they're taking part of the staff with them when they can't, right? Like, okay, you legally, they can't do that, right? Because you have a good agreement, but everybody quits anyway. So this is, so we want to avoid the resentment and the anger and the frustration, right? You all started this for a reason. There's a why. And I can almost 100% guarantee that it wasn't to be complete assholes to each other and quit, right? Like I have to assume that is true. So then how do we avoid that from happening? It's talking to each other, right? So yeah,
I think that's important too. Like bringing it back, and every step of this, bringing it back to your why, your values, your mission from the beginning.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something else too. Darn it. Oh well, maybe it'll come back to me later. Yeah, that's annoying when that happens. Does that happen to anyone else? All right. Well, let's move on to the closers. So when you're thinking about selling or winding down, the operating agreement becomes critical in a different matter in nature, right? Because you need to be able to clearly define what your day-to-day is, right? For potential buyers.
And something like when we were looking to sell our company, something everybody told me to do: don't tell your staff. While we did not listen to that advice, I will tell you, don't tell your staff. But that feels really gross and icky to me, and that's just me, right? No judgment here.
Our value is transparency and communication.
Maybe our value is stupidity. I don't know what it is, but
I mean, that's why that was our why.
Yes. Right? So we did it, and
it wasn't the greatest business decision.
Yeah, no regrets here. But this is something as especially if you're a majority owner. and you have multiple partners, like, get some advice on, okay, like, peace out, man. I'm ready to sell, right? Like, I'm done. How, like, I'm assuming the less partners you have, the easier this thing is going to be to sell, right? Because the more money you're going to get. But at the same time, if you buy them out, you may be paying more for buying them out than the actual value of the company. So these are just things that you need to navigate as you get closer to that point. How do I handle that? Good luck to you. I don't know how to handle that. So having that financial planner that has been going through your books and all of that stuff, super important. They can give you some advice on that. Having an open door, like that open door policy with the business owners. They're going to be like, you may be in a better relationship with these people. So when you do say, hey, I'm out, right? Then there won't be such hurt and resentment because they knew it was coming. Because again, even if they only own 25%, that is 25%. And so they thought, hey, I was going to have another 15 years of this company, and now you're selling it to ABA XYZ. I don't like how they do things. I don't want to be involved in this anymore. So like these, again, things get messy, right? Like I'm picturing, like, I don't know if there are any wrestling fans out there, but the whole Hulk Hogan death thing, right? Now his family is all fighting over his money, and it gets really messy really quickly when there's a lot of money on the table. So just having some kind of plan in place, like how you're going to do this, do any is it like having if you have less than 10% ownership in the company, you don't get a say in any of it, right? Like I don't, again, having something in place for the inevitable. Most of you are going to sell, right? Most of you are not going to hand this down, right? This isn't going to be a generational thing that you maintain in your family, right? Most of you are going to sell. So having something in place for how am I going to navigate this when I sell is really important. And the more complex you make your partnerships, right, giving partial ownership to certain people, the more messy that this can get.
Yeah. So a reflection prompt for this stage in the game is, if I were a buyer, would my operating agreement make sense? Like, try to look at it from like an outside perspective of someone wanting to come in and buy this. Do I know who has final say in financial and personnel decisions during transition? Just to kind of piggyback on everything Steven just said, it's like, if there's like chaos and who knows what, like the buyer, I'm assuming would kind of step back a bit because this is messy. Yeah, I'm going to hop into something pretty messy here, and I don't know who's who and who can make the decision. And I can
even
imagine.
Like anybody can sue anybody for anything, right? So if you have a part owner and then they're suing you to stop the sale because it's not written well in the agreement, then you have another problem on your hands, because this buyer may just get cold feet and they're saying, look, I can go down the street and get something that's way less drama than this. So just having that in place, again, like, just do yourself a favor. Do everybody a favor, and just have it written out. So if it does go to court, it can easily be resolved, right? Again, going back to, hold on, before you can go to court to stop this, I have mediation in place, I have arbitration in place, right? Then we go to court. Like, having these things in place, super important.
So an operating agreement is not just paperwork. It's a roadmap for decision making, money, and relationships. I mean, it's essential. It is an essential piece for your business, for sure.
And something, just sorry to interrupt, but something else that you may want to consider, again, just talk to an attorney. And this also goes back to your values. But if you have a partner and like it gets really bad and they start posting nasty things on social media, or they start, degrading the company, putting negative things out there, like, what are your what do you have in place to protect the company, right? So just having something like that, it may be worth having a conversation about, right? Yeah, there's the board ethics. They shouldn't be doing this stuff. They shouldn't be disclosing this information. But again, when it gets nasty, nobody's going to listen. And I don't know how much the board is going to help you immediately. Probably not, right? They just will not be able to do that. So having those things in place can help you, right? So like, again, like I said, asking all of these questions, taking a little bit of time and just saying, wow, these are the awful, terrible things that could possibly happen. What we should have something in place. We should have something in place for when these happen. Yeah. Right? You should have a will. We don't have a will, but we're working on it, right?
It's taken us a while.
Awful and horrible, right? And so nobody wants to think about this stuff. But when you're dealing with multiple people's livelihoods and the care of so many people, it's really important to have these things in place, because you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting all of those kids that are getting ABA therapy, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So wherever you are in your journey, whether you're starting, growing, or preparing for transition, having a clear agreement makes everything smoother and protects your relationships, because that's important too, right?
Yes.
People are important.
Yeah.
All right. So here's your closing reflection, your prompt for the week. What's one step I can take this week to make sure the people involved in my business are on the same page? And put it in writing. Start with one step at a time.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'd love to hear from you. We have a hotline. 1-737-330-1448. Did I get that right?
Yes. Okay. 1-737-330-1448 and press 1.
Yeah.
And then you can leave us a voicemail. We would love to hear from you. If you have any feedback, if you're like, Steven, that was the stupidest thing I've ever heard you say, I want to know about it, right? What do we get wrong? What do we get right? Do we miss anything?
Do you have any questions? Yeah. Do you have a specific topic that you want us to talk about on our podcast? If you do ask a question and you choose to leave your name, great. You may have a spot on our podcast.
Yeah.
If you don't want, if you want to ask a question, but you don't want to be on the podcast, you can just say that in the message, and don't leave your name. But we'd love to hear from you. And even if you have any success stories or, pieces of, good news, right? From what's happening in your little space in the world. So it would be cool. We'd love to hear from you.
Yep.
All right. Well, you can find us on all the places. Don't forget that our news is live on Monday mornings on our Facebook groups and
YouTube.
It's live in YouTube.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's live on YouTube on Monday mornings. I didn't even know that.
It is.
And then Tuesday, you can catch that on here anywhere that you listen to our podcast. You can catch the audio version. And our Back to Basics series that started a couple weeks ago, we're putting those up in video format on YouTube. So that will be ready soon. So we love for you to be a part of our community and to listen, and we're excited that you take the time to spend it with us.
So right now, you can get the ABA Business Leaders podcast. It's free. You can go to our website. I think it has 5 CEUs right now. We're getting ready to add another 20. So it will be at around 25-ish CEUs here shortly. So I would grab that, if you want CEUs while you listen to us ramble. So, and you know what else? We do insurance billing, 2.99%. So, if you need any support, we're here to help.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.